Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about the 1984 film Night of the Comet. Have my Blu-ray copy right here. This was put out by Scream Factory several years ago. You can get a look at the cover there. Night of the Comet was written and directed by Tom Eberhardt. It starred Catherine Mary Stewart as Reggie, Kelly Maroney as Sam, and Robert Beltran as Hector. This is a apocalyptic film. Although there's a lot of different tones to Night of the Comet, where there's satire, there's comedy, there's social commentary, there's some serious moments, but also a lot of light moments as well. So, as I said, kind of a deep cut from the 1980s. It was released in November of 1984. And to give a little bit of the story of the film, it starts out, there is a comet about to pass the Earth. This is a few years before Halley's Comet would pass the Earth in 1986, which was a big deal at the time. And when this comet passes over the Earth, it spreads a poison vapor or something over the Earth that turns everyone into zombies or dust, and most of the world's population is wiped out by this comet. So that's the premise of the film. We start out, interestingly enough, at a movie theater lobby where Reggie works. She's an usher at the movie theater, and there's a crowd gathered outside for the comet that's going to pass by. And it's also around Christmas time as well, which is adds some atmosphere. And meanwhile, her sister Sam is a cheerleader at the high school, and she's arguing with her stepmom. Interestingly enough, their father is some sort of special forces soldier, so the two sisters have a lot of training on how to fight. They know how to fight. They know how to use weapons because of their father, which comes in handy once I guess you could call it a zombie apocalypse arrives. And it arrives, and they figure out what's going on, and they get a radio broadcast, and they go to the radio station, and they find that no one's there. It's completely deserted, and they kind of stay at this radio station for a while. Hector arrives, who is a truck driver who also survived the toxic vapors that fell, and they have to all work together to figure out what to do. Meanwhile, there's a plot with scientists in this underground bunker who apparently knew ahead of time what was going to happen, and they are trying to preserve what's left of humanity in this bunker. And eventually the two sisters and Hector end up at this scientific facility where the scientists are kind of goofy and maniacal, and of course their plans aren't really what everyone else's plans are. So that's the basic story of Night of the Comet. There's a lot of, I think, elements in the film that make it work. I mentioned the tonal shifts in the film. I think there's a lot here. There's a lot of satire in the film. There's a scene at the mall where the three characters are allowed to kind of have a celebration of consumerism. Very much echoes of Dawn of the Dead there, although they do run into some I guess you call them zombies, although that's up for debate maybe, but I guess everyone calls them zombies in the film. And there's a lot of commentary on 80s culture, like these two valley girls who are saved in this apocalyptic event, and are able to find a way to survive. So there's a lot of humor throughout the film that works as well. The music, the pop score is, it just has that whole 80s ambiance to it. There's, in the outside scenes, like there's some scenes of Los Angeles, and I know they filmed it like on Christmas morning when the streets of LA were deserted. So we get kind of that authentic apocalyptic feel that the film manages to convey. With there's this odd reddish pinkish hue throughout the sky, which looks cool. It's an interesting look for the film. So, and also there weren't many female-centered science fiction films in the 1980s. I mean, they're just there's not too many, and that also makes Night of the Comet worth watching, where we see the two sisters, Sam and Reggie, who managed to survive through their skills and through their intelligence and their sense of humor as well. So it's and that's also, I think, makes the film worth revisiting, because, like I said, science fiction in the 80s was very much you didn't have female-centered sci-fi films too often, so the film definitely stands out for that reason. There's some dialogue throughout the film. I think, as the kids would say today, there are some cringe moments in terms of some of the dialogue and some of the terminology used, which is pretty common when you go back to the 1980s and see some expressions people use that would never be used today. So there is that, but it's not too over the top though with those things. The film kind of reminds me as well as like a Joe Dante film. There's kind of like this retro style to it, like kind of evokes the 1950s a little bit with the plot of this apocalyptic story. And I think you could put Night of the Comet along with many other films. If you're doing a movie marathon on apocalypse movies, I think Night of the Comet would be a great one to put slot in there, because it's, like I said, tonally there's some serious moments, but there's also a lot of humor. Like there's a scene when Hector goes back to see what happens to his family, and that's kind of a very sad scene in the film, but it's also balanced by some humor. Mary Warnoff also appears. She was famous. She was in Eating Raoul, a cult favorite of the 80s, but she was in so many cult movies, and she plays one of the scientists, and that kind of gives, kind of a nice credibility to the movie that she's in it. So that's another point of interest in the film. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I'll say about Night of the Comet. There's also some action sequences in the film. There's just it never gets boring necessarily. It's always kind of keeping you on your toes and wondering what's going to happen next. So, like I said, if you're looking for something from the 80s that's maybe not talked about as much, I think you'll enjoy Night of the Comet. I see it's available on many streaming platforms right now if you want to go watch it. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on Night of the Comet. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.